Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I have another doll customizing video for you, and today we're going to customize a Claudine wolf doll. I couldn't think of what to make for this custom because I didn't want to make the new Zodiac series yet, so I decided that I needed something in the interim, and what better than to have a doll representing what's going on outside right now. And I live in Northeast Ohio, so snow, that's what's happening right now. I'm not sure about where you guys live, but here it's definitely snowing, so I wanted to go with a little bit of a winter theme for this doll. So I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get started. So for any project, I start by cutting off all of the doll's hair. I try to get as close to the scalp as possible so that way it helps when I take out the plugs. Sometimes I can't get close enough with the scissors, so after I cut off all the hair, I need to take it a step further to get all of those long bits off. Once all the hair is cut, it's time to remove the head from the body. So I dip the doll in boiling hot water. Once it's in there for a few minutes, I try to pull off the head with a towel because the head is very hot. Sometimes this doesn't work. The head's not left in the water long enough, so I have to go ahead and redunk her. With the head pulled off, I can now take out the little plugs using my needle nose pliers. I try to get up close enough so that you could see how I scrape the pliers along the scalp to pull out all those little tiny hair plugs. Then I take the needle nose pliers and pull out what I've taken out of the scalp. Now this doll didn't have very much in the way of glue, so that was good. I lost all the footage of me taking off her factory paint, but I need to take off her ears for this custom. Using an X-Acto knife, I go ahead and snip off all of her ears, all 2 of them. I do try to take off the ears carefully because we will be repurposing them for this custom. Using super glue, I go ahead and take the ears that I just took off the top of her head and glue them to the side of her head to make her deer ears. With both ears glued to the side of her head, I now need to figure out what to do to fix the holes in her head and to start making the antlers. Now I don't know why I didn't show me putting on the Warbler, but that is what I covered the holes with. It is a thermoplastic that I cut and shaped to the size of the holes in her head and then melted with a hair dryer, and then it fused to the vinyl. I'm then taking some of that floral wire that I used in my last custom to make the horns to make this girl's antlers. The thermoplastic was really hard to get into, but with the help of an X-Acto knife and some force, I was able to get the wires through. Again, the same method I used before in my last custom with the ram's horns. I go ahead and pull the wire through the neck hole to make sure that it's secure in the head. I don't want it to fall off, and I want it to be very sturdy. For the remainder of the antlers, I use aluminum foil to build them up. For this beginning prong on the antler, I didn't really know how I was going to make it stick to the warbler and the armature wire. So my first thought was to use this glue. Yeah, that didn't work out at all. I went ahead and put the glue on a plate because that's safer, but the glue still did not do what I wanted it to do. It didn't dry fast enough. I don't know. It was just awful. So I decided to go ahead and use epoxy glue to glue on the bottom prongs, and it worked a whole lot better. And then I continued to use aluminum foil to build up the rest of the prongs on the antlers. With the base completed, I went ahead and used epoxy sculpt to sculpt the antlers. Now friends, I'm telling you, please do not do as I do. Use gloves when using epoxy sculpt. It is chemical. It is not safe. Don't do it. Use gloves. As with the ram's horns that I constructed, I use all the methods to make sure that the clay turns out smooth. So I use water, I use clay tools, I go out of frame. It's great. I really did not want to do any post antler sculpting with anything, no sanding, nothing like that. So I'm using all of the tools at my disposal to make sure that the antlers look the way I want them to look and are smooth and are shaped correctly so that I don't have to do anything after they're dry. Using a mascara brush that I took from the Sephora sample section, I go ahead and make those tiny details that are on antlers at the bottom. With the antlers complete, it is now time for the face-up. For the face-up this time, I'm going to try and give you all of the colored pencils that I used, at least the colors. For the eyes, I actually used 3 different browns. The first brown I used was the Museum Aquarelle Carandash Burnt Ochre. It didn't show up on her skin tone, so I went ahead and changed. Now I am using the Arteza. Yes. the Arteza Burnt Ochre, and it worked a lot better. At some point I do go ahead and use the Faber-Castell Albrechtdürr. My German is awful, I'm so sorry. Burnt Sienna, but that's going to be later on. For the whites of her eyes, I use a Derwent Inktense Antique White. I know at some point I also use the Museum Aquarelle. You know, I'm just going to say the Caran d'Ache because I cannot pronounce that, but you know what I mean. It's in the description box below, but it is the white pencil for the Caran d'Ache. For the eye color, I use several different kinds of blue. In this instance, I am using the Prismacolor. I think it's the No Photo Blue, which is really funny because that's usually a pencil that is used for sketching. But I really like the color, I guess, and I put it as the base color for her eye, and it really worked out. Again, all of these are watercolor pencils. I also used the Peacock Blue for the Prismacolor. I used the Derwent Watercolor Turquoise Green. Used the Derwent Inktense Iris Blue. And I also used the Derwent Inktense Lagoon. So all of those colors will be shown when I do her eyes. And I believe for her eyebrows is where I am using that Faber-Castell watercolor pencil. The best advice I can give for doing a face up is layering. I believe in this shot that we are still in the first layer, but I heard Hextian say in one of his recent videos, and he is another doll artist here on YouTube, that he tries to put in every color that he is going to have for the entire face up in the first layer. I thought this was really good advice, so I'm going to try to implement it. The only color I don't think I use in the first layer is black, but for some reason I didn't use that many layers in this project. The sealant gods really had my back, and we were able to lay down a whole lot of color with a first layer, so every subsequent layer just showed through even better. While we're watching the face up, I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys a little bit of a story time. So while creating this doll, I really had no idea what I was going to do. I knew the concept that I wanted. I knew I wanted some kind of deer themed doll, but I had no idea how I was going to do it, what doll I was going to use. I had no inspiration whatsoever. It took me forever to make this doll. I really wanted to get this done weeks ago. I actually started the project in the middle of January. It's taken me about a month to get this video out because I just had no inspiration. And I have to say that not knowing like where to start or what to do like is something I really need to work on for 2020. I knew the concept, but because I didn't know how to execute that concept, I basically dragged my feet the entire time and it was awful. So hopefully going forward, I will just dive in and get things done, even if I have no idea what I'm doing. This girl's lips, I actually used 2 different colors. So the first one is the Arteza Flamingo, and the second one I don't use till way later is the Arteza Crimson. I really enjoy the colors that Arteza has. They really show up, they're very pigmented, and I really like to use them in my customs. For her nose, I'm actually using, what am I using? For her nose, I'm actually using this Faber-Castell black watercolor pencil. Again, it's that German name that I can't pronounce, but it worked really well. I do use a couple of blacks in this particular custom. The second black that I use is the Derwent Inktense Ink Black. And I believe I used that for her eyes and for the second round on her nose. For all the blushing, again, I use my soft pastels. They are linked in the description below. I did get a new paintbrush that I'm absolutely in love with. I got it at Joann Fabrics. It's a round number 6 brush, and I believe it is Royal and Langnickel. Royal and Langnickel, that's what we're gonna call it. It's a number 6 round brush, and it just did a fantastic job for this face up. I really enjoyed how it picked up the color, how it laid down the color. Again, the sealant gods were in our favor. Everything was going so well. I was so excited. Everything about this custom turned out really good in the end, and I was actually pleasantly surprised, especially with how much trouble I had getting started. It almost made me feel stupid for not just jumping on it and getting it done instead of sitting in my craft chair and turning it around in circles while I sat with the doll on the desk not getting anything accomplished. I don't think I show myself using this one, but for the Caran d'Ache gray color, I use a French gray to do the shadows in the eyes, which I don't believe I show myself doing that, but I did do it, and that is the color that I used. the face up finally complete, it is time to go ahead and paint those antlers. For the antlers, I use a Liquitex Gouache White and a Liquitex Gouache Light Brown, I think. I don't have the paints over here with me, they're on the other side of the room. But I go ahead and mix those and put down the base layer of paint. I do have to say that I did not record me blushing the antlers. I got a little carried away and just started going to town without recording, so we do miss that, but you will see it in the end. After I go ahead and paint these and let them dry for a couple of hours, I go in with the soft pastels to put in all the shadows and the highlights that the antlers need. I also use the white gouache Liquitex acrylic paint to paint the scalp. Her hair is going to be white, so I wanted to lay down a layer of white paint onto her scalp, so if any of the scalp shows through the hair, it won't be that noticeable because the scalp will match. I also keep seeing these other doll artists paint these adorable baby hairs onto their dolls' faces, so I thought that I would incorporate that same practice in this custom. Now I have to say I'm terrible with a paintbrush. I don't know what it is, but I'm terrible with detail work, but these didn't turn out that bad. Maybe just a little bit more practice and I will become a pro, but again, I'm not very good with the paintbrush and detail work, but these came out okay. And there is the antlers blushed. The body also got a little bit of a blushing. To put just a little bit more something on the doll, I decided to add some micro glitter onto her eyes. I used a blue and a silver. And now it's time for her hair. I went ahead and made yarn wefts for her to make a wig. I wanted to do a reroot, but because of the way the antlers were, I didn't know how to put the antlers on since she had those giant holes in her head where her original ears were. So the reroot just didn't pan out. So I went ahead and made these yarn wefts. These were just as tricky as trying to figure out a reroot. The trick with yarn wefts is you want to hide where the track is, and that's where the glue happens at the top. So there's a lot of back and forth, and it's actually really hard to see. Her hair looks crazy at some point, but I do get it to settle down, and in the end I think it looks okay. You'll have to tell me in the comments below what you think. But again, the trick is you want to glue hair in both directions, so that way the hair on the top covers up the tracks in the back, if that makes sense. You see a couple of times I'm trying to fold the hair over to make it look right. And I think her antlers were a little bit too far forward to make everything work out correctly, but I did my best. And here's her hair completed. For her dress, I made this Regency style dress from Requiem Arts on Etsy. That's the pattern I used. I put on some faux fur to give it more of a deer aesthetic, and I used Velcro to clasp it in the back. For the boots, I chose these Ever After High boots. I wanted to give them a little bit something extra, so I went ahead and painted the details. The thing about Monster High and Ever After High shoes is that they put so much detail into the molds, but you can't see them because the shoe is mostly the same color. Other than the white they put on top for the faux fur, there's no other color. They're all the same. So I wanted to highlight the details that already existed in the shoe by painting them with these acrylic paints. Again, I used that white acrylic gouache by Liquitex. I used some kind of craft paint. I showed the bottles, but now it's too late. And then I used a silver paint that I think I got at Target, maybe? I do mess up a little bit on the boot here. I go too far down with the blue, but I show where I take a wet Q-tip and go ahead and fix my mistake. But the details on these shoes are just amazing, and using just a little bit of paint will highlight those details and just add that little something extra. Now, after doing all of the paint, I realized I didn't have a color for the laces, so I went with this blue color. Again, it's that Liquitex gouache acrylic paint. I really like how it works on the plastic, so that's what I decided to use. But I don't know if that bright blue was the correct choice. You cannot see the boots in her dress. I wanted to make the boots match what she was already wearing, the colors that are already incorporated in her design, and I needed another color for the laces, and I chose this blue. I like how the boots turned out. I just don't know if they're perfect for her, but again, you guys can let me know in the comments if you think that they match her. To finish the boots off, I go ahead and use this Liquitex High Gloss Varnish. I don't really like high gloss, but in this case it worked out because I only used it to finish the painted sections. If you are using a high gloss varnish to protect your painted pieces and you don't want it to be glossy, just go ahead and use a couple layers of the Mr. Super Clear that you used for the face up, and it will make the paint matte again. There's just a few details that I wanted to finish. One being that I needed to go ahead and gloss her lips. I used that same Liquitex varnish to gloss the lips to make them just a little bit more shiny, and I also used it to gloss her nose. And for the final detail, I decided to paint her nails silver. Claudine has really pretty nails, and I thought that it would be perfect to go ahead and give them a little paint. And with this, the custom is finally finished. So here are the final photos. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me through this whole video. I really appreciate it. If you like what you see, please go ahead and give the video a like. If you want to see more, please feel free to subscribe. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great one.